Три, блядь. Я тебе сейчас заебашу. Сколько еще? Сколько в общем на опорнике?
Там еще трое.
В общем сколько?
Нас было 6 тут.
Night ambush in the forest. Russian special forces capture Ukrainian troops in brutal close combat. A gripping video has surfaced from the Special Military Operations Zone, showing Russian special forces engaged in extreme close quarters combat deep within a forest. The footage reveals the stealth, precision, and determination of Russian troops as they launched a surprise assault on a Ukrainian defensive base hidden beneath the trees. Silent advance under night vision. The operation began with Russian troops moving silently through dense forest terrain, carefully avoiding detection. Using night vision goggles, the soldiers recorded and tracked the movements of Ukrainian fighters inside their camouflaged hideout. The technology allowed Russian forces to maneuver closer without revealing their presence, ensuring the element of surprise was preserved until the final moment. The clash begins. Once within effective firing range, Russian troops opened fire, unleashing a sudden and devastating volley on the Ukrainian defenders. The forest echoed with the sounds of gunfire as both sides clashed in a brutal exchange. The close quarters left little room for maneuver, forcing an intense firefight at point-blank distances. Ukrainian troops attempted to resist, but the relentless pressure from the Russian assault quickly overwhelmed their defenses. Neutralization and surrender. As the battle intensified, several Ukrainian fighters were neutralized in the firefight, while others, realizing their position was hopeless, laid down their arms. The video shows the dramatic moment when Ukrainian troops surrendered to Russian forces, ending the clash that had erupted just minutes earlier. Securing the hideout. Following the surrender, Russian special forces conducted a thorough search of the Ukrainian hideout. Weapons, equipment, and defensive positions were inspected and secured, preventing any chance of renewed resistance. The swift transition from combat to securing the area reflected the professionalism and discipline of the Russian troops. Tactical significance. This forest encounter highlights the lethal effectiveness of Russian special forces in close quarters operations. By combining stealthy movement, night vision technology, and aggressive assault tactics, they were able to dismantle a fortified enemy position with minimal delay. The successful capture of Ukrainian personnel also provided valuable intelligence opportunities. Inferno at Pokrovsk, Center Group incinerates NATO armor and Ukrainian forces. The Pokrovsk direction witnessed some of the fiercest clashes of late April as Russian forces of the Center Group unleashed devastating strikes against Ukrainian positions. On April 25, combat footage captured the destruction of NATO-supplied military equipment, artillery, and infantry, leaving the battlefield littered with burning wreckage. NATO armor in flames. The operation targeted multiple armored fighting vehicles supplied to the Ukrainian armed forces by NATO allies. Russian firepower tore through tanks and infantry fighting vehicles, setting them ablaze and neutralizing their crews. The destruction of these platforms underscored the vulnerability of foreign-supplied equipment when confronted by concentrated Russian fire and precision strikes. Crushing enemy infantry and artillery. The footage also reveals Russian units systematically engaging Ukrainian infantry and artillery firing points. Positions that once provided defensive cover were engulfed in explosions and fire, forcing surviving soldiers into retreat. The coordinated effort between artillery and drone reconnaissance ensured no defensive node remained untouched, denying the Ukrainian side the ability to stabilize its lines. Total battlefield superiority. Enemy vehicles attempting to maneuver or resupply frontline positions were also destroyed, adding to the scale of losses. The Center Group's combination of drone-assisted targeting, artillery barrages, and armored advances demonstrated overwhelming tactical superiority. By neutralizing equipment, personnel, and strongpoints in a single coordinated effort, Russian forces effectively dismantled Ukrainian defenses in this sector. The armed forces of the Russian Federation continue the special military operation. The armed forces of the Russian Federation carried out 6 group strikes with high-precision weapons and drones. They hit enterprises of the Ukrainian defense industry and energy facilities maintaining them, an oil refinery supplying fuel to the AFU in the Donbass, and depots storing SAPSAN operational tactical missiles, fuel, artillery and missile weapons, and long-range unmanned aerial vehicles. In addition, strikes were delivered at the military airfield infrastructure, long-range unmanned aerial vehicles command posts, temporary deployment areas of Ukrainian armed formations, nationalists, and foreign mercenaries. Over the week, the Sever Group of forces in Sumy region inflicted losses on manpower and hardware of 2 heavy mechanized brigades, 4 mechanized brigades, a Jaeger brigade, 2 air assault brigades, 2 assault regiments of the armed forces of Ukraine, and a territorial defense brigade. In Kharkov region, strikes were delivered at formations of 2 mechanized brigades, an assault brigade, a motorized infantry brigade, an assault regiment of the armed forces of Ukraine, and a territorial defense brigade. Over the week, the AFU lost more than 1,120 troops, 3 tanks, 23 armored fighting vehicles, and 74 motor vehicles in the Sever Group of Forces area of responsibility. 26 field artillery guns including 3 NATO-made artillery pieces, 3 electronic warfare and counterfire radars as well as 41 ammunition, fuel, and material depots were neutralized. As a result of resolute actions, the Zapad Group of Forces liberated Kaladyzy, Donetsk People's Republic. Russian troops engaged formations of 2 mechanized brigades, a motorized infantry brigade, an assault brigade of the armed forces of Ukraine, and a territorial defense brigade. The enemy lost more than 1,650 troops, 5 tanks including 3 German-made Leopard tanks, and 28 armored fighting vehicles including 19 NATO-made armored vehicles. The Russian troops neutralized 118 motor vehicles, 11 field artillery guns, a Grad MLRS, 39 electronic warfare and counterfire radars, and 35 ammunition depots. The Sever Group of Forces inflicted damage on manpower and hardware of 2 mechanized brigades, 3 air assault brigades, a Jaeger brigade, an assault regiment of the AFU, and a territorial defense brigade near Unikovka, Alexievka, Korchakovka, Sadki, Banyakino, and Novaya Guda, Sumy region. In Kharkov direction, units of a mechanized brigade and a motorized infantry brigade of the armed forces of Ukraine have been hit near Okremovka and Volchansk, Kharkov region. The AFU lost more than 170 troops, 2 armored fighting vehicles, 4 motor vehicles, 6 field artillery guns including 3 Western-made guns, and an electronic warfare station. 6 ammunition and material depots were neutralized. Units of the Zapad Group of Forces improved the tactical situation. Russian troops engaged a mechanized brigade, an assault brigade of the armed forces of Ukraine, and 2 territorial defense brigades near Monikanovka, Kupiansk, Kharkov region, Karpovka, Kirovsk and Kaladyzy, Donetsk People's Republic. The enemy losses amounted to more than 220 troops, a tank, 4 armored fighting vehicles, 11 motor vehicles, a Western-made artillery gun, a counterfire radar, and 5 electronic warfare stations. 4 field ammunition depots were destroyed. Units of the U group of forces took more advantageous lines and positions. In addition, strikes were delivered at manpower and hardware of 4 mechanized brigades, an airmobile brigade of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, a marine brigade, and a territorial defense brigade close to Alexandro-Kalinovo, Seversk, Stepanovka, Konstantinovka, and Dronovka, Donetsk People's Republic. The enemy lost more than 175 troops, an armored fighting vehicle, 5 motor vehicles, a Western-made field artillery gun, and 2 electronic warfare stations. An ammunition and 3 material depots were eliminated. The Center Group of Forces liberated Filia, Dnipropetrovsk region, as a result of offensive operations. Russian elements hit formations of 2 mechanized brigades, an assault brigade, a Jaeger brigade of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, a marine brigade, a territorial defense brigade, and a National Guard brigade in the vicinity of Zolotoy Kolodez, Krasnoarmysk, Oktyabrskoy, Rodinskoy, and Dmitrov in the Donetsk People's Republic. The AFU losses amounted to up to 420 troops, an armored fighting vehicle, 2 artillery guns, 13 motor vehicles, and a counterfire radar. 2 ammunition depots were destroyed. The Vostok group of forces continued advancing into the depth of enemy defense. Russian formations engaged manpower and hardware of a mechanized brigade and an assault brigade of the AFU near Kamyshavaka and Novokatskoy, Donetsk People's Republic. The AFU losses amounted to more than 230 troops, 5 armored fighting vehicles, 11 motor vehicles, and an artillery gun. An ammunition and a material depots were eliminated. The Dnieper group of forces inflicted losses on units of a mountain assault brigade of the AFU and 2 territorial defense brigades close to Kamenskoy, Primorskoy, and Malokatarinovka, Zaporozhye region. The enemy losses amounted to up to 55 troops, 11 motor vehicles, and 7 electronic warfare stations. 1 material depot was destroyed. Operational tactical aviation, attack drones, missile troops and artillery of the Russian groups of forces have struck site of the Sapsan Operational Tactical Missile Storage Facility, drone manufacturing shop, a depot of unmanned aerial vehicles, and temporary deployment areas of Ukrainian armed formations in 146 areas. Air defense facilities shot down 3 U.S.-made HIMARS MLRS projectiles and 172 fixed-wing unmanned aerial vehicles. In total, since the beginning of the special military operation, the enemy lost